You'll never take so much as a fork out of this house, Ella Cohen. Martha White slammed the ceramic plate in her hand onto the dining table. The blue and white glaze spiderwebbed into cracks, mirroring the distortion of her face at that moment. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the Venetian blinds of the brownstone old house in Brooklyn, casting light and shadow across her high cheekbones. Her perpetual gold-rimmed glasses reflected a sharp, piercing glow. My knuckles whitened as I clutched the divorce papers, trembling slightly from the force of my grip. Jason White's signature on the papers was as sloppy as a scrap of waste paper, just like him, forever marked by irresponsible carelessness. Jason and I took out a joint loan to buy this house after we got married. My voice tightened with suppressed anger, but I forced it to stay steady. New York State marital law clearly stipulates that marital property acquired during the marriage should be divided equally in a divorce. Divided equally? Martha shrieked with laughter, her voice scraping like nails on a chalkboard. Don't you forget, Richard and I used our pension savings for the down payment. You're just a jobless freeloader. Everything you've eaten and worn these years has come from Jason. Now you want to pack up and divorce, and still walk away with the White family's property? Not a chance. She stepped forward, her emaciated fingers jabbing directly at the tip of my nose. The stench of cheap perfume mixed with the onion scent wafting from the kitchen made my stomach heave. Jobless freeloader? I snapped my head up, 5 years of grievances and anger erupting in that instant. Who did I quit my Wall Street analyst job for? To take care of Jason's alcoholic father? Or to pay off the high-interest loans your son ran up at the gambling table? I snatched a throw pillow off the sofa, revealing a stack of collection notices tucked underneath. The top one bore the logo of a Las Vegas casino, the number of zeros after the debt amount making my head spin. Can't you see these? Or do you just choose not to? Martha's face drained instantly of color. She lunged frantically for the notices, her nails scratching a red streak across the back of my hand. That's Jason's business, not yours. Her voice weakened, but she clung stubbornly to her defiance. Husbands and wives are supposed to share weal and woe. It's only right that you help him pay his debts. Only right? I scoffed, stepping back half a pace to avoid her grabbing hands. Is it also only right that he pawned the diamond necklace my mother left me? That necklace was a family heirloom from my grandmother to my mother. It's registered in my name, part of my premarital property. The mention of that necklace made my heart feel clamped in a cold fist. It was my last link to my mother, yet Jason the gambler had lost it all in a single all-night card game. Draggy footsteps sounded on the stairs. Jason stumbled down, rubbing his bleary eyes, still wearing yesterday's beer-stained baseball jersey, his hair a tangled mess like a bird's nest. What's all the yelling about? Can't a guy get any peace early in the morning? He yawned, his gaze flicking over the divorce papers on the table, a look of irritation crossing his face. Ella, Mom's right. Stop making a scene. This house has always belonged to my family. Just sign and leave. I've got plans to meet the guys. Jason White. I stared at him in disbelief. This man I'd loved for 7 years and been married to for 5 showed not a trace of guilt, only a cold sense of entitlement. I've devoted 5 years of my life to this family. Is that all it's worth to you? Devoted? Jason scoffed. He walked to the fridge, grabbed a beer, and popped the tab, the sound harshly breaking the silence in the living room. All you do is cook and clean. Any maid could do that. Haven't I given you enough monthly allowance? He took a long swig, beer foam dribbling down his chin. His slovenly appearance brought back memories of our first meeting. Back then, he'd worn a crisp suit, smiled at me at a Manhattan gallery opening, his eyes full of tender warmth. Now, that tenderness felt like nothing but an elaborate lie. Allowance? I trembled with rage. Your so-called allowance isn't even enough to cover the interest on your monthly gambling debts. Who paid the rent last month? Me, with my own savings. And your father's medical bills, your mother's birthday party expenses. Haven't I been the one handling all of it? Enough. Martha shrieked, cutting me off. I'm warning you, Ella. If you know what's good for you, you'll leave with nothing. Otherwise, we'll see you in court. And when we do, we'll prove to the judge that you're the one making trouble for Jason, forcing this divorce, all because you can't have children. Her words struck like a poisoned dagger, stabbing straight into my heart. Infertility was my deepest, most painful secret. 3 years ago, I'd had a miscarriage. The doctor said chronic stress had severely damaged my body, making it nearly impossible for me to conceive again. Jason and Martha had never let me forget it, especially Martha, who acted as if I'd cut off the White family line. But they'd never once stopped to think where that stress had come from. You're impossible. I clutched my chest, struggling to breathe. Just then, the sound of a key turning in the lock came from the entrance. Richard White pushed the door open and stepped in. He wore a crisply ironed shirt, his hair slicked back with pomade, and carried an elegantly wrapped cake box. An ambiguous smile played on his lips. Well, look at all my darlings. What a lively day at home. Richard's gaze slid over me, a faint, greedy glint in his eyes that made my skin crawl. He set down the cake box and walked straight toward me, lowering his voice deliberately. Ella, if you really don't want a divorce, we could talk it over privately. I can always convince Martha, you know. His hand brushed casually against my waist. The greasy contact made me jump back as if I'd touched something filthy. Richard, watch your words and actions. I snapped, stepping back against the wall, warily watching him. Richard, Jason's father, was a retired taxi driver, affable and refined on the surface, but secretly lecherous to the core. Ever since I'd married into the White family, he'd been making inappropriate advances. I would have called the police long ago if I hadn't been holding out for Jason's sake. Martha, clearly long accustomed to Richard's ways, just rolled her eyes and snapped irritably. Quit making a fool of yourself and come help me figure out how to get this woman to sign and get out. Richard awkwardly withdrew his hand and wandered over to Martha, muttering something in her ear. As I watched this scheming couple, and Jason, indifferently drinking beer on the sidelines, I felt a wave of bitter irony. How had I ever been so blind as to marry into such a dysfunctional family? I'm not signing anything. I took a deep breath, tucking the divorce papers into my bag. I own half this house. I'll get back the money Jason owes me, and compensation for my pawned necklace, through legal means. If you keep messing around, I have no qualms about telling the media everything, Jason's gambling, Richard's harassment. My words clearly hit their mark. Martha's face turned livid, and even Richard looked flustered. Jason set down his beer can, frowning. Ella, don't go too far. We were married once, do we really need to make this so ugly? I'm not the one making this ugly, you are. I turned toward the door. I'll give you 3 days to think it over. If you still refuse to meet my demands by then, we'll see each other in court. I paused at the doorway, glancing back at the house I'd lived in for 5 years. The wedding photo hanging in the living room had faded. In it, I smiled happily, leaning against Jason. Now, that happiness felt like a cruel joke. I pulled open the door. The sunlight outside was harsh. Pedestrians hurried along Brooklyn streets, and the distant rumble of a subway train echoed. I knew that from this moment on, a new chapter of my life would begin. The road ahead would be thorny, but I had no choice but to walk it bravely. With nowhere else to go after leaving the old house, I moved temporarily into my best friend Lillian's place. Lillian had been my colleague back when I worked on Wall Street. She'd later quit to open a counseling studio, independent and loyal to the core. When she heard what had happened, she'd cleared out a guest room right away and even helped me contact a lawyer specializing in divorce cases. Ella, don't worry, New York State marital law is pretty favorable to women, Lillian said, setting a cup of hot cocoa in front of me and sitting down beside me to comfort me. As long as we can gather evidence of Jason's gambling and Richard's harassment, our chances of winning are good. But evidence is so hard to get, I sighed. Jason hides the collection notices every time he gambles. And Richard only dares to make moves when no one else is around. There's no solid proof. Don't lose heart, we'll find a way, Lillian patted my shoulder. Tomorrow I'll go back to the old house with you. We'll pretend you're willing to reconcile, and use the chance to gather evidence. By the way, do you have any receipts or photos of your mother's necklace? I do. I have photos on my phone, and the receipt is in my old safe, in the bedroom at the old house. My eyes lit up. If we can get those, we can prove the necklace is my premarital property. Early the next morning, Lillian and I went back to the old house. Martha's face instantly turned guarded when she saw us, while Richard still looked at me with that greedy glint. Jason wasn't home, no doubt off at the casino again. What are you two doing here? Martha crossed her arms, blocking the doorway to keep us out. Aunt Martha, I'm here to make peace. I put on a expression. I've thought it over. I was too impulsive before. We were married, after all. There's no need to take this to court. I just want my mother's necklace back, and a little of my savings. I can give up the house. When Martha heard I was giving up the house, her eyes lit up and her attitude softened noticeably. That's more like it. Why didn't you think this way earlier? She stepped aside to let us in. I'll ask Jason about the necklace. As for savings, Jason's already used all the family savings to pay his debts. There's barely anything left. Lillian and I exchanged a glance, silently surveying the living room. On the coffee table sat an empty beer can, next to a crumpled casino flyer. Lillian discreetly snapped a photo with her phone. Aunt Martha, could I go to the bedroom to get some of my things? I asked casually. Fine, but don't go rummaging through our stuff, Martha said suspiciously, following closely behind me. As soon as I walked into the bedroom, I spotted the safe on the nightstand. I pretended to pack some clothes, and when Martha wasn't looking, I quickly opened it and grabbed the necklace receipt. Meanwhile, Lillian kept Richard occupied in the living room, deliberately leading him into saying things about his harassment, and recording it all on her phone. Just as we got the evidence and prepared to leave, Jason stumbled in. His face darkened when he saw us, and he pointed at me drunkenly. You bitch, are you here to steal stuff again? Jason, get a grip. I snapped. I'm here to get my things. I already have evidence of the money you owe me and the necklace you pawned. If you don't want to go to jail, get that necklace back to me, now. My fierce tone stunned Jason into momentary confusion. Martha immediately stepped forward to shield him. Don't you dare threaten Jason. We don't know anything about that necklace. You don't know? I scoffed, pulling out my phone and playing the recording Lillian had just made of Richard. If you don't return my necklace, I'll hand this to the police and press charges for sexual harassment. And then the entire White family will be ruined. Richard turned pale, and Martha panicked. Jason looked back and forth between us, finally sighing. The necklace is with a friend. I'll get it back tomorrow and return it to you. You'd better. I put my phone away. I'll be here at 3 tomorrow afternoon. If you don't have that necklace by then, we're going to court. With that, Lillian and I turned and left. The moment we stepped outside, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. Lillian smiled. Great work, we finally got the evidence. Now we just wait for Jason to return the necklace. But Jason had no intention of returning the necklace. At 3 o'clock the next afternoon, I arrived at the old house on time, only to find it completely empty. Martha, Richard, and Jason were all gone. The living room was a mess, my things scattered everywhere. I immediately called Jason, but his phone was already turned off. I tried Martha too, same result. A sinking feeling settled in my chest, they'd run away. Just then, my phone rang. It was the lawyer. Ella, we have a problem, his voice was urgent. Jason mortgaged the house to the casino. They've already filed for enforcement with the court, they want you evicted. What? I felt like I'd been struck by lightning, my phone nearly slipping from my hand. How could he do that? I own half this house, he can't mortgage it alone. He forged your signature, the lawyer said helplessly. We need to file a lawsuit immediately to stop the court from enforcing the eviction. Also, I found out Jason owes a huge sum to a loan shark, they're looking for him too. After hanging up with the lawyer, I collapsed onto the floor, the room spinning. I never could have imagined Jason would be this ruthless, running off with whatever money was left and mortgaging the house out from under me. The home I'd worked so hard to build over 5 years was gone, just like that. When Lillian heard what happened, she rushed over right away. Seeing me collapsed on the floor, she knelt down and put her arm around me. Ella, don't fall apart. The lawyer said Jason's forged signature makes the mortgage illegal. We can sue to have the contract voided. But even if we get the mortgage voided, the loan sharks will still come after the house, I said despairingly. Jason owes them so much money, they'll never let him go. And I'll get dragged into it too. No, we won't, Lillian said firmly. We can apply for a restraining order to keep the loan sharks away from you. And if we can find Jason, make him take responsibility for what he's done, things will turn around. In the days that followed, Lillian and I worked with the lawyer to gather evidence while searching for Jason. We contacted all his friends and checked every casino he frequented, but there was no sign of him. The loan sharks came to harass me several times, but Lillian always called the police in time to stop them from doing any harm. Just as I was on the verge of giving up, a strange number called. "Is this Ella?" The voice on the other end was hoarse. "I'm a friend of Jason's. He's in a hospital in Queens. He's in really bad shape. You need to come see him." Lillian and I rushed to the Queens hospital immediately. Jason lay in the hospital bed, his face ashen, his leg wrapped in thick bandages. He was clearly badly injured. "What happened?" I walked to the bedside, my voice cold. "He owed $500,000 to the loan sharks. When he couldn't pay, they broke his leg," Jason's friend sighed. "He knows he messed up. He's been wanting to apologize to you, but he's too ashamed to face you." Jason opened his eyes. When he saw me, they filled with guilt. "Ella, I'm sorry," his voice cracked. "I shouldn't have gambled, shouldn't have pawned your necklace, shouldn't have been so cold to you. I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me?" Looking at Jason, so pitiful and broken in the hospital bed, I felt no sympathy, only overwhelming exhaustion. "Forgive you?" I scoffed. "When you drove me to the edge, did you ever think this would happen to you? I won't forgive you, not now, not ever. And I'll never believe another word you say. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness." Tears streamed down Jason's face. "But I got the necklace back. It's in the nightstand drawer. I also wrote a statement admitting I forged your signature on the mortgage papers. It'll help you win the case." I opened the nightstand drawer. There, sure enough, was my familiar diamond necklace, and a handwritten statement signed by Jason. I picked up the necklace, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. This necklace held all my memories of my mother, and bore witness to my failed marriage. "I'll give this statement to my lawyer," I said, tucking the necklace and statement away. "Take care of yourself. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other." Stepping out of the hospital, the sun warmed my skin. Lillian patted my shoulder. "It's all over, Ella." I nodded, clutching the necklace tightly. This marriage had left me scarred, but I'd finally reclaimed what was mine, and escaped that suffocating family. I knew the road ahead would be long, but I was ready. I'd find a new job, start over, and build a wonderful life for myself in vibrant Brooklyn. Later, the court voided Jason's mortgage and ruled that I owned half the house. I put it up for sale, using part of the proceeds to pay off Jason's outstanding debts. With the rest, I partnered with Lillian to open a small art gallery in Brooklyn's art district. Every day, artists and tourists from around the world visited us. One day, I was greeting a French painter in the gallery. He noticed the diamond necklace around my neck and praised it. "That's a beautiful necklace, full of stories." I smiled, touching the necklace gently. "It does have many stories, but the bad ones are all in the past. Now, it only holds good memories." The painter nodded, picking up his brush to sketch my portrait. Sunlight streamed through the gallery's floor-to-ceiling windows, falling on the canvas, and on my face. I knew my life, like this unfinished painting, was filled with endless possibilities.